I bought this old banger here for £7,000 and ended up selling it for £11,750. And in this video I'm just going to take you through exactly how I went there from start to finish. If you don't know what this is a Land Rover Series III. This was basically the Defender before the Defender came out. So, you know, it's an old bit of kit. I think the year was 1981 off the top of my head. I ended up spending £500–600 on this. You'll probably find out later once I do the maths, but I made a tidy £4,000 profit. And before I get into exactly how I made that, let me also add on, I don't claim to be an expert. I know the basics of cars, I don't know an awful lot. You put me up against a mechanic, then you know, they know a million times more than I do. So I just wanted to add that on just to say that anybody could do this. This basically came about through word of mouth. And the guy I bought it from, he stays locally. I heard word he was going to list it. I said, okay, let me go and have a look. I'm interested. He said 7,500, which sounded like a sound deal for any Land Rover, regardless of the condition. Now at this point I'm doing my homework on the car itself. Being over 40 years old, this car is deemed a classic, so it's been exempt from MOT since 2019. Regardless, I'm still checking the MOT history just to make sure that there's no underlying problems. The one I was looking at passed its last one in 2018 with no advisories, which is rare as anything for a series Land Rover. But here I'm looking for the main ones, such as corrosion, oil leaks, problems with transmission, etc. Just, you know, the extreme shit. At the same time, I'm doing my general market research. So this one here is an 88-inch, which is the short wheelbase, and it's a 2.25 litre petrol engine. So this puts it right at the top end of the Land Rover Series market. This one here had its chassis fully galvanised in 2019. It had its bulkhead refurbished as well, and it had a repaint. Under the hood was looking pretty crisp as well. So, you know, there's things at the top end of the market already. Only problem was, and it's a real problem, was that it didn't actually start. Well, it's easy to be naive and underestimate these sorts of things, as these can run well into the thousands in terms of repairs and stuff. But so that's kind of it for the background checks. Moving on to actually going on his driveway and checking the car yourself. The big one is rust, and that goes for any old car. You need to spot check. You need to check the vehicle to death for any spots of rust or the signs of corrosion, because even though the MOT history might suggest it's fine on paper, just get under it and check it. You know, if there's something you spot that's wrong with it, that gives you bargaining power. Specifically for an old Land Rover, you want to make sure that the chassis number matches what's on the V5. Check the restoration history, check receipts, if everything. You want to pay close attention to the suspension on these things. The original model comes with leaf spring suspension, so you want to make sure that they're not overly corroded or sagging. Particularly on off-road used vehicles, some people have changed over the suspension onto coil springs, which can affect the value, so just pay attention to that. Also check out the transmission. The Series 3 uses a 4-speed gearbox, and it has a red and a yellow lever for engaging and disengaging, so make sure everything there is working. And yeah. Also give the electrics a quick look. Do be mindful that these are 99 times out of 100 not going to be perfect. You know, over 40 years old. They're going to have some work done. As you can see here, I've had a bit of a cowboy job with the wiring. These are simply just labelled. So that took a bit of working out in the end. Make sure you check out the smaller details as well. Any sort of spares or accessories that are coming with the car. Things such as like the original floor mat, these can fetch a few £100s. In my case, it came with a spare water pump, which is like £80. It also came with an original spare speedo, which is like £300 on eBay easily. But yeah, you know, it's common sense. You're just looking for originality. Something that's not being tampered with too much is going to greatly increase the value. I could be here all day talking about all the small details, so you know, I'll just leave a list and you can just check it for yourself. Eventually we settled on £7,000. I shook his hand at that, and the guy had an excavation company, so he had trailers there. He just dumped it outside the garage and it was time to get to work. Yeah, moving on to what I did when I got the car in the garage. Now obviously the only thing I really care about at this point is why it's not starting, so the first thing I'm doing is troubleshooting. I'm charging the battery, I'm checking the spark plugs as well. Eventually I had to get a new one of those. The car hadn't actually been running since 2019, so I serviced the car. The root of the problem eventually came down to the carburettor, which I had to replace. It was like £80 for an aftermarket part. If you don't know what a carburettor is, it's basically the old-fashioned version of fuel injection. I had some mechanic friends and even they had never actually worked with a carburettor before. Luckily my dad knew a guy that had worked with Land Rovers before. He basically knew them inside and out, so we got him to come down. I wouldn't dare touch the tuner myself, so I got him to do it, otherwise I think I would blow the fucking thing up. He came in at like £100 all in, £120 maybe. After that was that sorted. We're back up and running. Some of the wiring configuration was also messed up, so I had to change a bit of that about. In the process, I actually managed to snap the dashboard, so that's another thing. Just make sure you're careful with these parts as they're pretty delicate. Also repainted the spare wheel. It was pretty water damaged. I just sanded it down and sprayed it with ivory white was the paint. And also just tarted the thing up generally. I got the heritage plates, which was a cool addition. I'm sure there's also a few other parts that I can't remember, but I'll leave a list and I'll basically just total up exactly how much I put into the car. So yeah, at this point I'm ready to sell her. I just went through eBay and Marketplace with some decent photos and a clear description of everything that I needed to include. I think I've got the original listing description somewhere, so I'll put it in the actual description of this video. Initially I listed her for 16,500. This was actually the going rate at the time. I'm not too sure what it is now, but I later learned that being a random guy, I didn't quite have the same authority in the market as the LLCs and the resellers, so I couldn't quite charge what they charged. Eventually, like I say, I sold it for 11,750. I actually sold it to a reseller, so that kind of tells you that maybe if I hung in there I could have made a little bit more. The guy was super straightforward. He just came down in like 2 days. After phoning me up and sending me the money straight away, he came down with his trailer, and that was him. I just sent him on his way with the receipts and the records. But yeah, that's more or less it. There's no secret. Just stay in touch within your local area. A lot of guys, they don't want to go through the whole reselling process and listing and dealing with strangers and stuff. If you're a trusted guy, then you'll probably find that's an upper hand. I would say though, just don't do it if you don't think you're going to enjoy it. And certainly don't do it for money, because this could have went horribly wrong. And if you don't have the time and budget wiggle room either, then factor that in as well. The opportunity I got, I know it was super rare, but it's all about being in the right place at the right time, I guess. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the video. If you made it this far, then thanks for putting up with my drony voice. This is my first one of these, and it's harder than it looks, mate, honestly. Just remember, take everything I've said with a massive grain of salt. I don't claim to be an expert. Yeah, I'll catch you in a bit.